Hi everyone, it's Ardell, and today we're going to be talking about clarifying information. We want to review the difference between a freelance question and when to use a clarifying question. Alright, so let's start with this question. What is a freelance question? And in order to answer this question, we're going to look at our Universal Standards number 11, which is Freelance Questions and Instructions. So what a universal standard is that this is what we as QAs use to do reviews. There are rules that apply to every protocol, police, fire, and EMS. And this is how we determine if they're done correctly or if there's areas that need improvement. So Universal Standard number 11, Freelance Questions and Instructions, starts out with the caller may not use freelance questions or instructions at any time. Pretty obvious there, but it does go further. We're going to talk about it in the next few slides here. So a freelance question is any question that is not in the protocol or that does not provide an appropriate clarification or enhancement to a question in the protocol per Universal Standard 3, which is acceptable clarifications and enhancements. We will talk about this later in the presentation, so don't worry, you guys will understand what that is. So freelance questions can alter the intent of the interrogation and impact the system's design. Alright, so that's the start of Universal Standard 11. As we continue on, it does go further into what instructions are. So freelance instructions are those instructions that are generally considered to be beyond the call taker's scope of practice or that are incorrect. So freelance instructions can harm the patient, victim, or have a negative impact on the caller, the scene, or responders. So freelance questions are considering as going out of scope of practice, which means that that activity falls outside of the boundaries that are set up within protocol, and it could open you up to liability. Continuing on with Universal Standard number 11, Freelance Questions and Instructions, it does also state at times the call taker may provide additional information that may enhance the case. If this information is reasonable and safe, is not viewed as a freelance instruction. It gives a couple of examples. One of them is while providing dispatch life support instructions, the call taker instructs the caller, put me on speakerphone, turn up the volume on your cell phone so you can hear me clearly. Another one is when talking to a first-party caller, the call taker adds, turn on the outside light and/or unlock the door if you feel you can do so without harming yourself. Neither one of these is considered a freelance. This is an acceptable enhancement of the instructions. So these are allowed within protocol. Okay, here are a couple of examples of what freelance questions are. Was she drinking before she fell? When was he diagnosed with that? Is the fluid leaking from the front or back of the vehicle? Is that the patient I hear in the background? These questions tend to occur as we get through case entry and then we have to decide on what pathway we're going to take, what protocol we're going to select, and we realize that we haven't obtained enough information to make that decision. So we start asking freelance questions to gather more information when we need to clarify during tell me exactly what happened. And none of these questions enhance the protocol. If a patient has fallen, it doesn't matter if they're drinking before they fell. We want to address the fall. We don't want to ask if that's a patient we hear in the background. Freelance questions can delay in getting to safety instructions, it can delay in gathering information within protocol for responders, and it can also delay in getting patient care. So we want to move forward into key questions so that we are gathering the required information in the correct order. And as you're working through protocol, remember DeLuca's law. EMDs will follow all protocols per se, avoiding freelance questioning or information unless it enhances, not replaces, the written protocol questions. Alright, let's look at Universal Standard number 3, acceptable clarifications or enhancements. And this was referred to when we were talking about Universal Standard number 11, the freelance questions and instructions. So let's talk about what a clarifying statement is. So the call taker may provide an acceptable clarification or enhancement to any protocol question or instruction. Once the scripted protocol question or instruction has been read as written, the call taker may rephrase the question or instruction using language equivalent or nearly equivalent in meaning to the script in the following situations. The first one is, the caller does not understand the scripted protocol questions or instructions. Obviously, if the caller doesn't understand what we're asking, we need to rephrase the question so that we're not changing the meaning of it. Number 2, the caller answers ambiguously. If callers are kind of hem-hawing around the answer, or they're giving us conflicting answers, like the completely alert, well, kind of, yeah, he's alert, but he's not making sense, then we want to clarify what they mean. And also, if the caller doesn't answer after a reasonable period of time, we always want to ask the question, and if they don't answer, then we want to re-ask the question, and if they're still really not answering, we want to clarify that information, rephrase it so that they can understand it. And if the call taker does not clarify in these situations, that question or instruction is reviewed as asked incorrectly or given incorrectly. So we want to make sure that in any of those situations we just listed, that we are clarifying information from those callers. Continuing on, the call taker may refer to previous statements made by the caller, including those spontaneously provided, to introduce the clarification, but the call taker must then ask a complete question to confirm an objective answer to the question. And let's look at some acceptable clarification examples that we want to see. Correct examples. You said he can't get out of the car, but I need to confirm. Is she trapped? So this is considered a best practice. The call taker refers to the caller statement and then asks the question as written. The next one is, you said she's trapped in the vehicle. Is that correct? This is also acceptable as a call taker refers to the caller's statement and then requires the caller to confirm whether the statement is correct by asking a complete question. So these are two. Again, that first one is the best practice. The second one is still an acceptable enhancement. So an incorrect example, you said she's trapped, right? So this is considered incorrect as the call taker provides the caller an answer and then leads the caller into agreeing with this answer. So you said she's trapped, right? Remember, people that are kind of in panic or that are in distress a little bit, they tend to hear the last thing that they told you. So if they said, yeah, she's kind of alert, and you repeat back, you said she's not alert, correct? All they're hearing is what they told you, and they're just going to answer yes. So we want to make sure we're using our best practices and repeating those correctly. You said she can't get out of the car, but I need to confirm. Is she trapped? Or you said she's trapped in the vehicle. Is that correct? So those are the two that we would find acceptable. There's others. These are just the two that are best practices that we go over a lot. Let's talk about what an ambiguous answer is. Ambiguous means that the answer is open to more than one interpretation. We'll give a few examples of these on the next slide here. So the patient is having a heart attack. That's kind of ambiguous because it doesn't really tell us exactly what's occurring. They're unresponsive. Well, what does unresponsive mean? We need to clarify. If they say he's alert, he's just not making sense. Well, that's conflicting information. It doesn't really help give us the information we need. And then also one of those, I've been robbed. So what does robbed mean? Because a lot of people think that if someone breaks into their house, that's considered a robbery instead of a burglary. So we want to clarify exactly what happened. How do we clarify the correct way? We're going to talk about some clarifying questions, and the first one is, again, back to Universal Standard 3. Those correct examples. You said she can't get out of the car, but I need to confirm, is she trapped? You said she's trapped in the vehicle. Is that correct? Those are two of the ways that we want to clarify that are best practices that I would get into the habit of using more often than not. All right, so let's look at a few examples of what we just gave. So the first one is, tell me exactly what happened. Well, my husband's having a heart attack. Right, we want to send the right response. So with this example, my husband's having a heart attack, the best way to clarify is to say, I understand he's having a heart attack, but tell me exactly what happened. Hopefully, this will prompt the caller to give you kind of the symptoms he's having. If not, you can always ask, well, what type of symptoms is he having? We don't want to ask questions that's going to lead them to what we want them to say. Is he having chest pain? Is he having difficulty breathing? Those are leading questions. So we always want to start with, I understand he's having a heart attack, but tell me exactly what happened. Our next example is they're unresponsive. So what does unresponsive mean? We don't know. It could mean they're unconscious. It could just mean they're not alert. So we want to clarify this information. And the best way to do that is, I understand they're unresponsive. Tell me exactly what happened. There's a theme there, right? We want to make sure we're doing this in the same manner every time so that it becomes a habit. That way we're not leading people to answers, but we're getting them to give us information. When working in ProQA, it also has built-in clarifiers. So these are called parenthetical clarifiers. And what these are used for is if we ask the original question or give the instruction as written, and then pause for a reasonable time to allow that caller to respond, then we can use those parenthetical clarifiers. So let's look at the is he completely alert? We want to ask that as written. Is he completely alert? Give the caller time to answer. If they're not really answering or they're giving conflicting information or not a clear answer, then we can use that clarifier. Well, is he responding appropriately? This could better help the caller understand what type of information we're asking for so that we can get a clear picture of what's going on and make sure that we're giving the right instructions at the end when we need to. Now that we've talked about the difference between a freelance question and a clarifying question, let's talk about why it's important to clarify information with callers. So one of the reasons we want to clarify is because we want our callers to understand what information we're asking for. This gives us a better picture of what's going on with the patient, what's going on at the scene, and this helps us to identify what instructions we may need to give, also identifies what type of a response we may need to send. So it's very important that callers understand what information we're asking for so that we can get accurate information from them to relay to the responders, as well as make sure we're giving proper instructions. And we just talked about this, but we always want to make sure we're giving the right instructions to callers. If we're not clarifying information and we don't understand if they're alert, we don't understand if they're awake, we just know they're unresponsive, we may miss some instructions. So we want to make sure we're giving the right instructions for patient care, for scene safety, on how to stay safe until responders can get there for them. And we're going to watch this quick video. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but it shows the importance of reading those instructions and giving them correctly.
Here now, man. I hope you're happy.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Well, good. Now what?
Well, I just think we should wear our safety vests.
Oh, come on, man. Those vests are for daggone people who really like to use them. Deer don't even see them. They're colorblind, stupid. Golly. Oh. Hey, Tiny, did you get something? Tiny, what'd you get? Tiny. Tiny, oh my God!
911, what is your emergency, please?
Yes, please help us. I think he's dead. What do I do?
Sir, calm down. I can help you. We'll walk through this together. First, I need you to make sure he's dead.
Well, I can do that. Hold on a second. He's dead. Now what?
Just a little reminder, make sure that we are not doing freelance instructions and that we understand what's occurring with the patient so that we do give the instructions properly. Another reason we want to clarify is so that we send the right response. The right response doesn't always mean they're going emergent versus non-emergent. It means that we want to make sure that if a law enforcement response is needed on medical calls, that we're addressing this. So if someone's calling in because a patient overdosed and we don't know if they're violent and we don't send a police response, that puts our fire and medical personnel in danger. So we want to make sure we're gathering that information through key questions and clarifying if we need to. That way a proper response is sent and we're addressing the safety of our responders as well as our callers. Let's do a little bit of review. So during key questions, the call taker asks the caller, "Is your mom completely alert?" The caller answers, Yeah, she's awake, but she's rambling just a little bit. What is the correct way to clarify? Is it A, so she's alert? B, so she's not alert, right? C, is she responding appropriately? Or D, baby shark? And I'll let you finish singing that. Let's look at what the correct answer is. It is C, is she responding appropriately? If we look at our answers, so she's alert, this is considered a leading question. We're giving her an answer to agree to. So she's not alert, right? Again, a leading question. We're saying she's not alert, right? We're kind of prompting her to agree with us. Is she responding appropriately is the correct answer. This is how we want to clarify. I hope that clears up a few of your questions. If you have any further questions, you can contact us at our email, or you can go to our webpage and look at more of the CDEs that we've put together. We're always adding more for police, fire, medical, and there's also some general CDEs in there. If you have a suggestion for a CDE, there's a form in there you can fill out, and we'll try to get to that as soon as we can. Thanks for coming.